Hello, and thank you for joining us for this live Transcending Ascension podcast with Kirsten Mustaine, our TAP, Transcending Ascension Pragmatically, where we bring you the news and our pragmatic but spiritual opinions on the matter. So how are you doing today, Kirsten? And thank you for being here.
I'm doing really well. Thank you, Diana. It's been kind of a wild week. Lots of wild energies going. It feels like things are really ramping up energetically. I'm interested to see what the news will hold.
I know it's a lot of things happening right now. It's wild. And then what got me really, well, I've always been interested in obviously I went to journalism school, but I'm the investigative martyr, like we were just saying before we went live in the human design, investigative. So there's something that just fulfills my soul when we're investigating, because everything is going to have a spin, and the narratives right now are wanting to spin things in certain directions, and sometimes they don't even think it's for dark malevolence, but they're trying to be sensationalized. That's what journalism teaches you, and that's what people have just subconsciously learned from watching the news. But they actually teach you that in class too. Like, that's what they want, because they want, just like now, and this is before feed culture, like feeds and views and likes and clicks. Like, we learned this before that culture even was really quite the thing it is today. So people will do things, and we all have that archetype, the prostitute, where they will like put themselves out, because you can prostitute yourself anytime you're betraying yourself just to get something. And it could be anything, like attention or energy or whatever that situation is. People are putting themselves out there and just giving things crazy spins. So here I am doing the same thing.
Well, hopefully you have a more benevolent, I know you have a more benevolent agenda than that. And it is interesting, because I have a journalism background too. I was a newspaper editor for years. And of course, my publisher always said the same old thing they always say: if it bleeds, it leads. On Christmas Eve one year, there was a really bad car accident, and that got the headline rather than the really feel-good story we did about Santa Claus. And it's like, whoops, that's not going to be on the headline. It's not going to be on the top, above the fold this time. It's going to be the car accident. So, and there is always a spin. And when I was in the newspaper, the spin was, who's buying the ads? That's who we want to. We want to make them look really good, and so I remember I was doing an investigation on some environmental, some really bad environmental poisoning that was going on, but it was one of our major people who bought ads. So that was not ever put out.
Oh, geez. So you actually had like one of those up close and personal experiences where you don't mess with the sponsors, which we've all seen like in TV layouts of how that world works.
Yes. In fact, I had to sit in a room with their PR guy for like an hour and a half while he lectured me about how they weren't really doing any damage. And he tried to get me, it was a chicken processing plant. So obviously it was a dreadful place. Anyway, he was trying to get me to come do a tour and see how they weren't doing anything toxic. And I was just like, I'm not doing a tour.
They know the restaurant reviewer is coming. Yeah. So they could clean it before you arrive.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh no, that's okay. But yeah, so I've seen that spin, and I think it's really awesome to come on here and give things a different spin. Spin it back around.
Exactly. We don't have any sponsors technically, although YouTube does keep a strict ish. I don't know, like I've been gotten a couple, I don't even want to say it because it will get me for that. So it's like I get it to a point. I get having to like, I don't want to lose everything I've worked for kind of energy. But at the same time, there's ways to push it, and there's ways to keep it as classy and pushing the narratives as possible. So we'll dive into our first clip here. and then just get your thoughts, bring the news. And this one is, let's see here. I will get better at this one day. Okay. We're looking for, there we go. Okay. Here we go. This is, I think you'll find this very interesting, Kirsten, and it goes off our divine feminine that we were doing on the Metaphysical Fat podcast.
Feminine does not submit. That's a bunch of bullshit that they told you that the masculine leads and the feminine submits. But it's the fucking complete opposite. See, the divine feminine is the spark, the intuition, it is vision, the unseen blueprint. The divine masculine is the structure, the logic, the action that builds upon the vision. So in truth, the masculine doesn't actually lead, it serves. It submits, not like in some weakness shit, but in devotion. It says, show me the vision and I'll make it real. And let me get something clear, because these energies is not about men and women. This is about energy. They both live inside of you. When your logic tries to lead your intuition, you get stuck, burned, and disconnected. But when your masculine bows to your feminine within, life flows. You follow the whisper, the download, the nudge, and your action carries it into form. And the shit that we need to get very clear is that your soul does not submit to societal constructs. All this talk of the man is supposed to lead, the woman is supposed to submit, that's patriarchal, ego-driven bullshit. That's a system somebody made up and stamped as this is how it's supposed to be, but there's no supposed to be. Your soul wasn't born to obey constructs. It was born to flow, to move with whatever is alive between two people in this moment. Relationships aren't about rigid roles. They're not checklists. They're a living, breathing dance. Sometimes you lead with vision. Sometimes you lead with action. Sometimes you soften, and sometimes you anchor. Now, there's nothing wrong with preference. If you love the dynamic of a man taking care of you in every way, beautiful. If you prefer a relationship where energy flows differently, also beautiful. But that's preference. That's not universal truth. People suffer when they confuse preference with law, when they box themselves into this how it has to be for everyone. That's the real actual trap. Life isn't supposed to look one way. It's supposed to look like your way. Like different things work for different people. What matters is not following constructs. It's following what works for you. This is your life. Stop complicating it with rules that were never real. The only true submission is to your own soul. That is divine union. That is freedom.
Wow.
I'm muted. I love everything that she put there and the way she put it. It's just so frank, but to the point, and that's exactly it. And that's what we were discovering on the collective consciousness panel and then it started with Stephen and I on just a show of us, and I forget who was on whose show. I think we crossed it each, so there was that, and then we moved to the collective panel, and then we moved it to the metaphysical fat and just talking with the feminine. Like, we have talked about this subject at length, and we came basically to the conclusion that there is no conclusion. We are making this up.
That's absolutely right, Diana. You froze, so I'm just going to go on from there. We're making it up as we go. And like that woman said, I mean, that was a brilliant, that all tied it up very nicely in a beautiful little package there, because really it is just the energies, and how you choose to embody the energies is how you choose to embody them. So you don't have to fit yourself into some kind of box. We are creating our lives as we go, and we don't have to be in a box. We don't have to follow these rules, but it is true that the divine feminine is the intuition and is the creative energy, and the masculine is the action and the logic and bringing it into the physical. So that was a beautiful clip. I love that.
Yes, yeah. I figured it's funny because it's one of my more recent ones, and I do try to go through them like as I pick them, so they're still relevant in my mind. But I was like, nope, I put that one ahead because I wanted you to see it. And I like what so like when we break down the variables, like for each relationship, like for example, like me and my husband, like we kind of like we've been together forever since we were 19, and we've had so many shifts, and like he's a millennial and times are changing, but at the same time his brothers were Gen X, and you could see that come through on him. where he tried to impress his brothers. Like he'd literally speak to me differently around them and stuff like that. And you watch as we unfold and as we change. And now we're hitting a place. Oh, hello. Thank you for being here, Nick and Sam.
Oh,
And
hi,
hi. Yeah, it's good to have you here. But like basically you learn like what is each of your fortes, like when you're in a relationship for any length of time. This is why like people, they get over the honeymoon stage and they're like, oh, we don't actually love each other, this is terrible. But no, the truth is like you need to work through the issues. You need to, whatever it is. So like for each partner it's different. So for some things, like with money, my husband does lead because I've proven that's not my forte, right? But when it comes to like a lot of the issues with the children, but not all of them, I take the lead because I usually am, it's switching back and forth, or even stuff in the house or what happens with the dogs. Like we each have our own area that we pull and lead, because everything in life is leading and following, like everything. That's just the yin yang and the dance of duality. And this the way the forces of nature work. It's those two forces always playing back and forth. And it's not just I'm feminine, he's masculine, because I'm feminine and masculine. We're both that like more androgynous starseedy type. And so it's really is a game of variables, and it really is unique to whatever relationship you're in with. And you can't proceed authentically, for one, if you're not even trying to be authentic, but two, if you have these boxes that you think people should fit in, whether it's a stereotype, an archetype, a gender, whatever the box is, it's of no one's service to ever be in any boxes.
That is so true.
Yeah. Yeah, I let my lady do
Yeah.
planning and organizing. She lets me handle the broad goals. It really is a dance. Yeah, a dance is exactly the way to put it. And me and my husband have been meaning for years to take like tango or something lessons. And then now we have kids, and now how do we do it? But we should have really got into that earlier, because I think there's something there when you learn to dance together. It can help you energetically. And Samantha says, when the honeymoon phase is over, that's when the real relationships starts. It's finding those balanced points where you can see each other in the entirety. And exactly that, because when you want in every relationship you have, you want to look in their eyeballs and see their soul, and see them for their entirety and their complete divine truth. And whether or not like they are of a vibe to be in our total life, because some people, especially even if they are like family and siblings, like cousins, people we might have used to know, really close friends for a long time, but we can still love and honor them and see them in their truth, even if we see them in a more sleeping place or not as aware as us. Like my one sister's like really awake. She thinks herself, but she's like woke, and we're like counter awake, but like we're both awake. And I'm like, why are we even arguing? We're both awake. Let's just be happy about that. And like, and just like, let that fall where it may, because as long as you're pushing the narratives, that's all that matters. But then you're going to get streams like we're discovering amongst ourselves, like where we're finding these people that like, whoa, like it's it's not always perfect, but it's very much more aligned. Would you agree? Like finding your alignment.
Yes, I do agree. And I'm amazed because for so long I felt misaligned with everything in my life, everything. And you have to, and I was a dance, because I was always like, well, what do I do here? Because if I'm going to be authentic, I may have an argument, and I don't know. And so you find these people, and then when you actually find people you're aligned with, it really is kind of a shock in a lot of ways, because it's like, oh, this person doesn't think I'm completely nuts. That's new and fun. But I know what you mean, because I have a similar thing with my sister, and she always wants to impose these views on me that she knows I don't agree with, and it becomes really difficult. But as you pointed out, I think we can step back and honor those people. We don't have to actually keep them as close in our sphere, though. And I think that's something we always have to look at with relationship, because I see a lot of spiritual people saying, oh, but I'm spiritual, so I'm going to work this out, and I'm going to just throw unconditional love at it, and it's going to be fine, and everything's going to work out. And people aren't always ready to be in that kind of a relationship. And if they're not ready, you can love them and honor them, but you don't have to live with them, So it's a dance, and it's finding people who can dance with you, who have the rhythm to dance with the dance that you do. And that that's probably the most difficult part. It has been in my life, although recently it hasn't been so difficult. So I think that's kind of shifting for all of us as well.
Yeah, and that's why I like that video that Stephen originally shared, but then I just kept sharing it because it was so. I think I eventually ended up sharing it to all of X because it was just that much. It explains the shifting, and it explained it in a way that I could see it, that I could feel it, because like, and we knew this, like you can know, but then no, right? Like our past
Yes.
and the things we went through to actually be what makes up our future, and to see why it's a swap, like the divergence and how we felt like we didn't belong because we were never meant to. And we heard this, but we're finally starting to see it because we're seeing like those people on the stage, the politicians and things like that. And we're watching how their games and their trickery no longer like lines up to the same degree. People aren't buying what they're selling. They've pushed narratives too far. And people are really like, it's like, why they said the star seeds came to begin with is they pushed the lies too far energetically. So the star seeds were allowed in en masse because they were always allowed like a sprinkling, but we were allowed in en masse. And we are here, and we were here and born and not made for that world because we were the long overhauling process of switching the world. But we're in that actual turnover now. We're like, before it was like all groundwork, it seemed like, right? Like we were working,
Yes.
and like you'd see things here and there, and you switch your mind state, and you do want that love and light, but at the same time it's always authentic. It needs to be
Yeah.
authentic and fully realized of the totality. Like it can't just be like, oh, I see that they've done wrong, but I'm going to love and light. It needs to be, what have I seen in myself? What am
Yes.
I bringing out to the world, to before we can start to clarify ourselves to the new world. But the new world's coming. We're seeing it. And then we're going to see the shift where all of a sudden they don't make sense anymore and we do. And the truth is going to
Yes.
be what is called for. So, and you're actually starting to see it. Like I'm actually really enjoying what I'm seeing now.
Me too. And I'm seeing it in such amazing and interesting ways. And just having people who used to, 10 years ago, my yoga classes, I was afraid to even talk about the energy because people would be like, ah! And now people are asking me about it. And so I can see the shift in the whole collective consciousness as well. And it is that the new world is coming, and it's not as slow as it used to be, and we are finding our connections now. And because I think for such a long time we were all just sort of isolated and saying, yes, it is, Nick, isn't it? And now it's like suddenly there are people in my life that I can really relate to in a way that I've never related to anyone in my life the whole time I've been here, which has been quite some time now. And it's like, and it's really refreshing and amazing. Of course, I still get those moments where I'm like, I wish this would go faster because I'm so sick of this stuff. but it really is shifting. And I'm even seeing it in people that I never thought would shift. Like my mother, for instance, who's 86 years old, and I'm like, I thought that she always had these very specific ideas, and suddenly she's really opening up and seeing things in a new way. And it's like, wow, I didn't even think that was possible, and it is possible. So everything is possible. And you also said something else, Diana, that I wanted to address, and that is about the ultimate relationship is a relationship with yourself, just like she said in that video. And it's balancing your own male and female, that within yourself, because that's when you can really start to step beyond that box and being in that relationship box. It all starts with you. It all starts with how your male and female interact. And of course we all carry a lot of wounds in our male and female aspects because of our parents and grandparents and great grandparents and past lives and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really is a dance. It's you're dancing with yourself, and then you're dancing with everybody else.
It's so true. And it's one thing like, because I abandoned Twitter. I'll post like one or two things, but I'm not there scrolling. I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
What I started, because I love imagery. I love imagery, and Twitter used to give that to me. Even Instagram used to a million years ago, but even Instagram banned that even longer ago. I moved to Pinterest of all places, and by simply searching like sacred geometry and hermetics and things like that, it started to create my feed with those imagery, and I just saturate myself in it, because everything you're saying, Kirsten, like everything that's happening with the world, it's so expanding, and we don't have the groundwork in that in our DNA, not for thousands of years, like I a longer period of time. And then one could argue perhaps in the junk, we need a new name for that, in the extra DNA
Yeah.
is where that memory might lie. But right now, our current access, and that's what we're trying to break through. But looking at the imagery from my etheric being match my mind, and then even in a way be part of the body matrix kind of self, the full totality of self, because of course the soul knows this, and that's why these images speak to us the way they do, because they're resonating from that field and then into all of us. And that's like looking at any of the dimensional images and sacred geometry and hermetic art and things like that, they will create this for us. Question for you two. How would you help someone integrate the masculine and feminine who is wanting to, but not sure where to start? Well, that's great. And I would just sit. You could
Mm.
honestly, like one would do, and I'll just go quick and then you can go, Kirsten. When you're done with, oh yeah, thank you. Sit with it and like a pros and cons list, write about yourself. Cause I kind of basically did this myself without the actual writing, but I know most people like a project that has like tangible nature. So what is masculine? What is feminine? And what are you not sure about? So when you get up and you get ready for work, do you feel like a man or a woman? And kind of think about how you do it. And then this is no insult, but there's certain things like I remember when we were younger, metro was a term, and like there was, and I was into, I got Patrick, like metro, but it was like, that's a feminine nature. Men look amazing at it though. Like the whole crush craze of the K-pop, those men are all trying to look like women. So their looks to them are actually feminine. And Johnny Depp, there's the reason he was the best looking, because he looks like a girl. The best looking boys look like girls. So looks are a feminine realm. How much do you care about your looks? And that's just unpacking one issue. Okay, how are you at work? What are you compassionate? Are you the one people go to for advice? Are you giving care? Or are you the leader? Are you like I know, Nick, you've told us that people think of you as like a military person, a military, I forget the exact title you gave it, but it was like a lieutenant or something top, but that sounds masculine to me. So anytime you're giving something like a military general term, that would be a masculine energy. So that's unpacking that. And we just keep breaking it down. Like, so getting a fuller understanding of what is masculine and what is feminine, and under there, so what is Venus, what is Mars, and really start to feel and there's obviously every single planet has a gender, but your quickest way to get the beginning of it is Mars and Venus, and then you're getting more complicated as you extend out, because things like being an intellectual, you really do start to get like, which is that's when the lines start to blur. But your baser issues of life, how do you live, how do you work, how do you treat your children, how do you treat your spouse, how do you treat your house, how do you treat your dogs, unpack those to begin with, and you'll get a really good clear picture of where you're lying and where you might need to tweak things. But what do you think, Kirsten?
I think that's really good advice. And I would add that the one thing that I did was I really looked at my weaknesses. Sergeant down to the kids. I really looked at my weaknesses. Where am I really not doing well in my life? And for me, I had a great deal of masculine wounding. So I started noticing, well, I don't do well with this. I don't do well with getting enough money. I don't do well when something breaks. These things that I started to look at within myself and saying, well, okay, how can I really access that masculine energy to bring this in? And one of the ways I did it was through yoga, because yoga gave me a framework for discipline and for putting everything, because I've always been really free flowing. Yay, I'm so creative, and yay, but I really had trouble creating a structure for my life. So that told me that my masculine was really out of balance. And so I really started looking at, well, where can I create this structure? And in some ways, there are just things I can't do. I can't lift heavy objects, and that's just the way it is. And I look at that as more of but I found the things that I could do, and I really started saying, okay, I'm going to rely on you, because one of my wounds was I can't rely on men to do anything for me. So relying on myself. So again, look at your relationships with people and what happens in your relationships, because that will also give you clues about where you need to work on to balance that male-female energy. So when I looked at that and I was like, okay, men always let me down. My masculine always lets me down. Why does that happen? I followed it back. Where does that come from? It comes generally, a lot of times it comes from something very deep in your childhood that happened, or even in a past life. And as we know, there's all that other stuff. So following that back and saying, okay, where did I think suddenly that I wasn't able to do this? Where did I and how has that led me to let myself down? So as you know, when people mirror us in so many different ways, and a lot of times just looking also, what is the other person that I'm in relation with, or whoever I'm talking to right now, what are they mirroring back to me? And is that masculine or feminine? And so, yeah, that's how I have tried to balance it.
I resonate with that. Yeah. And my subconscious, masculine of my upbringing was scary, angry, and hurt me. And then so my masculine became scary, angry, and hurt me. And that was this darker force in my life. And once I balanced out that masculine aspect, and it just happened so naturally. I find the finer details, and so I'm going to get to Sam's thing here. The finer details are where we find our truest self. So Samantha's asking, do you feel like it could be boxing in what is masculine and feminine? So that came earlier. So I'm assuming my list of masculine and feminine. And yes and no, but it depends on the person, and it depends on their mental capacity for variance and nuances. And that comes naturally to me. So I don't do boxes. I don't have boxes. But my autism likes labels and categories, because that just simplifies words. We're getting to a point where we're expanding our information, expanding our learning, and then therefore expanding the way we communicate and teach and things like that. Because just conversations are teaching. Every time I talk to any of you, you're teaching. It's all this point, because we circle similar streams, but there's always different ways, we put things, different perspectives. So there's no boxes in my world. But when I'm telling people to unpackage it like this, it's to get it started. And when you're getting it started, you're assuming the person is coming from a lot of programming still. And you want to give them that symbolic imagery to start to make some progress, because this is why people can get stuck in Maya and toxic positivity and things like that. And I don't mean you mean that, Sam, but if people go too quick into Earth's world's not real, we're just a hologram, and you just want to throw it all away because the past was false. People say don't vote and that'll fix the system. It won't fix the system. It just won't, not unless everybody did it. It won't fix the system. So just saying there's no boxes and then not using terms and things like that will leave things too much in the wind. And with the mass amount of people we have coming, that might have worked for the initiates once upon a time, but with the mass amount of people we have coming, and not all of them are going to want to even head to the same place that the natural star seeds are, because that's our calling, that's our purpose. Some of them are simply just looking to get better programs to expand their conscious awareness, but a lot of them might still stay in a very matrix-like structure, the ones we call bio-robots or NPCs. They're going to upgrade a lot, and they're going to need help. Not that they're directly going to come to us, but we're creating a consciousness wave here, a stream to affect the consciousness collective. So either way, it's somewhat going to trickle to them to a point. So any way we can get them to simplify and access those beginning layers of healing is a good thing to me. And then, but never a box though. Like you want to keep going because that's why I says the base. Start with Venus and Mars, but then explore Uranus and Neptune because they have like, you can give them a gender, but they're both actually kind of genderless if you look at all the things that they do, right? And Pisces even really, you can get like the bigger one, or like the further they go out they go, the more you can. Although funny enough, I do very feel like Pluto is a man, but you know what I'm saying here. There's variances and nuances. And then to your next topic, I extremely agree. So do you feel like the archetypes need redefining what we think is masculine and feminine? 100%. 100%. That's where I would hope that initial exercise would keep going as you dive and pick out everything. Cause like I've gotten to the point where like conversations, like I can really dissect everything, and not everybody needs to necessarily get to that layer, but everybody will have keys that they find within themselves that they didn't know, within their archetypes, within their self, to birth new. And like Kirsten learned to like harness her masculine to help her life. Like, and likewise, I've learned to grab the feminine. I used to want to manifest Mary Poppins, and then I realized I could channel Mary Poppins. And so I brought more feminine into my life. So it's not even about like the woman bringing in more man. The woman can bring in different woman. And that actually leads me perfectly to our next clip there. If you have anything to add, Kirsten, while I look for it.
No, I think you covered that really well. But I do think we really do need to be conscious when we reach out to help people who perhaps haven't been on this path and haven't seen the same things we do, that you're absolutely right. We need to break it down in a way that they can grab onto and understand, because once they start taking the steps and walking, then things will start making more sense to them and coming to them, and they'll be able to step outside of those initial little containers that you give them to figure this stuff out. Because I think we all started with those containers, really, if you look back. And so, yeah, it's starting there and widening it out.
With women remaining youthful.
Oh, no, keep talking. Sorry. It just auto plays when it goes up. Well, I agree with what you're saying. And to add to that, this lady right here is about to blow the box wide open on what we think about women, and especially when it comes to aging. And I love it so deeply because I was lacking, and I used to want to be the fancy old lady drinker from that old show Huff. And she's this rich old lady, and she just drinks martinis all day, and she's sassy and awesome. Or even the one from Arrested Development, she was cool too. Like that was my like pot, you know. But I don't even drink anymore, so I was like, what kind of old lady am I gonna be? I won't have my So this gave me hope that I can find a new cool old lady to be one day. So here we go.
Society's fixation with women remaining youthful is really dumb, because we know that the highest form a woman can reach is like wicked old woman that lives in the woods, or like Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Like that is peak femininity. Like somebody that is going to put a curse on your family because you stole lettuce out of her garden. Somebody that has lipstick on her teeth always, and she never wears a bra, and she carries around a cane, and she hits you with the cane, and when she laughs, she cackles. Like that's femininity. If you are a woman, do not let society prevent you from becoming the bog witch that you're destined to be. You are destined to be a fucking menace to society, to scare the shit out of your neighbors. Like that is who you should want to become. Oh, I can't wait to be an old lady. I can't fucking wait to be an old lady. This whole like, you should want to look as young as possible forever is fucking nonsense. I don't.
Right? So good.
Oh my gosh, that is just fucking awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it was perfect. When I said she even has like the blue eyeshadow, I'm like, yeah, I can rock blue eyeshadow when I'm older. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that was perfect. And that's exactly it. And even the little, that reminded, like, I know the what's it? The Into the Woods. Yeah, Meryl Streep's part. They steal the lettuce from her garden. That would be amazing. Not that I actually would, but it's just funny to know I could.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I could too, and I wouldn't. but I am that lady in the woods. And I decided to let my hair get natural. I mean, you can't say it, but it's I used to hide my grays, and now I'm just like, yeah, I got gray hair. Some people pay to have hair this color because it's all different colors. So I think so I just loved that, Diana. And as someone who's getting up there in years, I'm like, hey, yeah, I love it. Anyway, yeah, but and I always, and I think we've really disrespected the crone in this society, because the crone is the holder of the wisdom. The crone is the really powerful one. And so I think we need to bring that respect back for that aspect of femininity. I loved that clip, Diana. That was just, I loved
Yes.
it. We loved it.
Exactly. Yeah, when we were talking last time and Sam was like, what about the crone and the maiden? I'm like, well, I'm just imagining at work, and I really hope like a crone is not having to still be at work, or if she is, she's the CEO. She's Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada instead. And which people say, if you ever want an idea of a textbook manifester, it's her in Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada is a textbook manifester, apparently. According to another YouTuber, but I can vibe with that. And she absolutely has that crone boss energy from that ideal place. But also Meryl Streep in Into the Woods, she's got that. I would vibe with that kind of crone better, where it's like she's very wise, very smart, and interesting and cool. And like you want her in the scene, like she's your favorite in the movie. Like she's the one you want to be. And that's exactly the kind of, I've even said this many times, like I feel like my audience are my children, and not just my children, but that age, Gen Alpha, right? Like when Gen Alpha hits here, because unfortunately Gen X, they can too, and they can too, but Gen X had a lot of the toxicity hit them raw hard, and before everyone was like, yo, this is wrong. By the time I got to the alphas, at least there's enough people going, yo, this is wrong. Like what? Something's up. These kids are depressed and something's not okay. So these Gen Alphas, it won't just be me. They'll have lots of like crones to go to that are there to give them wisdom, where like the Gen Zs are just looking at the baby boomers and the Gen Xs, which I know you're a part of that generation, so I'm not besmirching it, but like on average, so I feel bad that because that on average, that generation, it had some cool aspects, but it also had a lot of the more asleep aspects of life, where that doesn't help them, because even the Gen Z saw it was wrong, but they had no one to help them and show them like something else. But now the alphas will have these people that have been awakened for a long time, and so many of the star seeds will be of that age where they will be looked upon. That it's just really good. I don't see how the future doesn't work out with that right there.
I agree. And yeah, I mean, I'm Gen X, and when I was growing up, what really interested me, because when I was growing up, when I was early adolescence and so forth, the last person I wanted to ask any advice from, we'll love you too, Sam. The last person I ever wanted to ask advice from was an adult. It was like, y'all don't know anything. I don't want to talk to you. You got nothing to tell me. And of course, in some aspects, that was quite wrong. However, that was really the attitude of my generation, and for good reason, because and most of us, I mean, we just grew up riding our bikes all over creation, and we didn't have adults really guiding us, even in a lot of instances. But what has really surprised me was when I taught college public speaking classes for about 5 years, and those kids really wanted an older person to give them some guidance. And it shocked me, because when I was that age, I was like, ah. But I'm really seeing that. And it was beautiful, because I was like, I used to have this attitude that, oh, when I get older, no one's, like my stepfather often says this, and, he has his own self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, you become irrelevant when you grow old. Actually, in a balanced and a society that's not as inverted as the one that we are the one that we're in the process of dismantling, then the older people are who you really want to talk to, because they have the experience and the knowledge, and they've been there. And that, and I am seeing that in the young people, that they really are looking to find people who can really give them some wisdom and who have some experience. And even that, so as you were saying, even that has really shifted since Generation X, because we weren't looking to anybody older than us to tell us anything. But I think, but it also shows that those of us now who are coming into more of our crone aspects, or elder aspects, are really have more to offer, I think, than people used to. And I'm not saying that they didn't have anything to offer, but they were so traumatized and toxic that, if any of them had any wisdom to give, it was amazing. And and I got to say, my mother is a very wise person, so I always had that in my life. But I think that, and also, just again, that's shifting naturally, to have younger people are having more respect for their elders than my generation did. And so I hope that is also reflecting that the elders are more worthy of respect. Not that my elders weren't, but they were just very traumatized and misguided, I would say,
Yeah, and I think it's centrifugal, right? Like, because those children or those young people probably sensed that you were going to see them as like an equal, like, not, oh, you're just a dumb kid, oh, you're just like those teachers where you get in the class, shut up and sit down and listen to me, even you had them even in college sometimes, or you had the ones that saw that you were budding adults and actually talked to you and tried to treat you like that too, like where they were gentle because they understood you were growing up, you were away from home, this was the beginning, but at the same time tried to treat you like an adult with like love and care. Like, there was a difference. I never had a fully awakened teacher, but there was that difference where some were ready to be there for kids as an equal, because some people just get the idea that, and that's one thing that's just naturally shifting, that young people are lazy, stupid, and don't know anything when they don't have the ability to see that generations change. The mission changes, and nobody gave the Gen Zs a new mission. And their new mission is to help save the world, like more so than us in a large degree, because they're in the baseline where they can go get those jobs and become fancy scientists. Let's just say that. Molecular biologists. That's what I was trying to
there you
find.
go.
When I was that age, I looked at how messed up the adults were and went, well, won't get good advice there. Exactly. Well, won't get good advice there. So
exactly. It's
true.
It's true. And I really loved teaching college, and people would say to me, well, I have no hope when I see the young people. And I'd be like, I have so much hope when I get around these young people, because they're just beautiful. But, like you said, I went in there with the intention of loving those kids and giving them guidance and really trying to help them flourish and be who they were. And that I didn't see that a lot, even in the teachers that, my colleagues, they'd come in and they'd be like, these students are so stupid. And I'd just be like, how can you say that? They're wonderful. They're just wonderful. You walk in and they're just glowing. And I was like, how do you not see that? How do you not see these kids? Because they're just amazing. And the generations, even looking at the difference between my generation and the younger generations, they have so much more brightness and they just glow. And I'm not saying that people in my generation didn't have that glow, but it was much more subdued. I mean, and we were dealing with a lot of really crazy shit too, just with our
Yeah,
with our hippie parents, and it's like
Yeah, and it would be such a difference too, because you'd have people with hippie parents, but then my dad and my mom, like they were not raised with hippie parents. They were raised with the same old hard bombed my way or the highway and pretty much abuse called discipline. Like, so there's that very different, like there was like if you think about it, there was a split back then. And then you had
There
hippies.
was.
Yeah.
There really was, because I had hippie parents and they were not disciplinarian, but the thing was, we were just kind of out there running wild. My mom had to work full time. Well, after I was 5, my mom had to work full time. My stepfather was, a whole different thing. And we were just kind of out there going, okay, well, we're going to come home and make some top ramen and watch some TV because the folks aren't here, or we're going to run wild in the neighborhood, which is what we often did. And it was really, yeah. So, but then I had friends whose parents, regularly beat them and called it discipline. And it was like, it really was a split, because my parents were, oh, peace and love, and we're not going to discipline. But instead, then we had really no discipline. But I mean, my mom was really a good mom, but she was working all the time, so it was really, we were just like figuring out our own things, basically. And in some ways, I think that was good, because we really learned to rely on our own intelligence to help us get through, because we really didn't have anywhere else to turn a lot of times.
Yeah, the latchkey kids. And you got to think about it like in a large way. Maybe it was to wipe the slate clean. Maybe it was to bring a generation that didn't have so much parental brainwashing.
I think you're really onto something there. And I used to think, because I know there was there apparently was a concerted effort by the Parasite class to kind of separate kids from the family and raise them with a television set. And I do, I love you, Sam. I hope you feel better. I do.
Yeah, love and prayers to Sam.
Yes. What was I saying? So I do see that, though, because I know there was like this concentrated effort to sort of like, oh, the moms have to go to work, so there's nobody in the household now, and we're just going to let you, be raised by the Brady Bunch and I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and Star Trek and Gilligan's Island, and this is like, and I do know people in my generation. I think I mentioned this maybe on one of the other podcasts, maybe on the Metaphysical Fat, where I've known people who were so raised by the television set that they actually don't know how to have a two-way conversation. Now, that didn't happen to me and a lot of my friends, but I can see how it was really wiping the slate clean. I think, and that's another really lovely aspect of creation, isn't it? Because we have the dark ones, the parasite class, trying to push this agenda on people. And it may have worked in some areas, but it backfired in other areas, because we had to learn on our own. Well, what do I think about this? I've got to solve this problem. I'm the only one here. So what am I going to do? And it really helped us to find some self-reliance, that I think, and to really see things in a new way. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. Because there's so much that comes out of that and those kinds of situations. And I had it partially myself. My mom worked when I was little, really little, so little I don't remember. But then when my third sibling sister came along, she became a stay-at-home mom for a while. Then that's mostly what I remember, luckily. And that was pretty good-ish. My dad was still my dad. He's always been my dad. But my mom was better. But then she started working when I was in grade 7. And then I became like a latchkey kid. But me and my dad kind of, well, not really, because I didn't work as much as him. But we grew up in the same property, in the same kind of ideal, where our dads, because it's the same property, worked on the property, Beach's Garage. And that was my grandpa and that was my dad. So he was always there. So he was there technically. but out in the garage, like his business, because but we were in the house. And TV, I would have to come home. One of my most traumatizing things, like, I remember Kyla was really upset the other day, and Sam had a similar, or no, it was Sam's daughter that had it, where she got in trouble and she didn't do anything wrong and she was punished for that. I had that on the bus on my way home to see Passions, my soap opera. Started at 3:00. I barely got in there at time as it was. And this lady stops the bus because the boys at the back throwing stuff on her car. And it still obsessed. I was like, my soap, because they meant that much to me. These soap operas, Passions. Oh, there's Bold and the Beautiful at one point. I grew up on The Young and the Restless. Like, they were family members to me. So it's still funny. Victor. But like, and all these different shows, General Hospital I was into when I was a teenager. And Passions had magic and a witch and stuff, but it didn't last. But these shows became me. And then it was funny when I got into metaphysics eons later, because raised atheist. But luckily, like, I read a lot and watched a ton of TV. Buffy, I was obsessed with that. So I had like this layer of fictional magic knowledge that was just my entire existence was learning about fictional magic or watching some kind of situation. And it really does become you. But you got to think, like, what was better, the TV, or if my parents had to, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes the TV might be better. I can't say that today with the YouTube shows they have, but back then, I mean, I don't think they made me make life too dramatic. They probably added to my borderline personality, because they made me think life was way more dramatic than it needed to be, because it doesn't. We don't need all this social drama if we're just seeking a soul purpose. But that's kind of a separate subject. I'll take us to our next clip. And this one is from David's brother and David himself. So David the Lion on YouTube, and then his brother, who I will have
a personal testimonial and recommendation for future of gardening hydroponic systems, because back a few years ago, or earlier on in the pandemic, right, I purchased my own hydroponic gardening system from Dr. Jane Ruby, and it was like the Tower Garden. It was like $1,000, and you got this tower, hydroponic PVC pipe tower that you can have like inside your home, and you assembled it and kept water running through it and grow plants all up and down it, and it was great for a while. And Future of Gardening even gave me a few tomatoes and a few other plants that I grew in there, and they did great for a little while. And then after some time, and before I knew it, like, there was a giant puddle, like giant, in the middle of our dining room floor. And I was like, oh no, we cannot have this. So after a few times of fiddling with it after that, I finally gave up on Jane Ruby's Tower Garden. But it did work great for a few months, but eventually, when we left that place, I ended up leaving the Tower Garden behind and trashing it. So, but your system, like, how much does it cost to put one of your systems together? It's not even half what it costs to get one of those.
He was just like you. He was just like me, until the day he remembered who he really was. He was entrusted by heaven to guide and protect.
One soul, infinite timelines, all collapsing into one truth.
A tale of immortal love from beyond time and space.
One soul, infinite timelines, all collapsing into one truth. The Lion of God, issue number 1. Q is for Quantum. Now available on Kindle, Amazon, and Comixology.
Perfect. And that was David the Lion. As he said, his comic book is available on Amazon. I've read it. It's amazing. And there will be more. It will be of a series, and it's just more awakened material that we can put ourselves into and support each other and each other's work, because, and it's absolutely worth it. This just isn't supporting a friend's project. This is actually a really good comic book. And I was sad when it was over and it was a cliffhanger. So spoiler alert. No, that's not a spoiler. It's just a cliffhanger, which most comic books are. I'm used to graphic novels. I get them all at once. And this is the comic book, and it's really good design. And the visuals are amazing. So good job, David. And I would recommend picking one up if you care about spiritual awakening fantasy work that's actually going to like create some stimulus with the soul. But what were your thoughts there with David's brother? So David's brother runs
I have a personal testimony.
Runs Future of Gardening, and it is basically trying to find new ways for us to be on Earth and make our own food and all such things. And definitely something we could use more of. And the systems that they're trying to create, it's exactly what we need to move the meter forward for. Not that I tried being fully sustainable with your own food. It's not really, but if we all got into a little bit, I did potatoes, you did corn, that kind of thing, we could really get something going, especially you and I, Kirsten, and you're even more country than I am, but we live in these smaller communities, and you can start, once we start being social again, because I feel like COVID really did no one talks to each other anymore, which suited me because I was antisocial. But at some point, society is going to have to start communicating again, and then these will be the things we work on.
Yeah, well, where I live, people never stop talking to each other. And we really, I live when you go out around here, if you go to the store or whatever, you will be talking to people. They will talk to you. And it's very, but it's very rural here. And we did COVID, but we didn't do it as, we didn't do it as deeply as I think a lot of places did.
Right,
but I'm already seeing that. We just did a little bit, masks were kind of optional. Most people wore them. Nobody really said anything. If you didn't, I didn't. I was like, I'm not doing that. Nobody really, we did close down for 3 months, but then everything went back to normal. And well, not normal. I mean, it's never really been normal since, has it? But the thing is, this has always been a place where people chat with each other. We're here at the edge of the Ozarks in Oklahoma, and we're like, people talk, and so but I'm really seeing our farmers market in the past couple of years has just really grown. And we're starting to be able to source, like, I could literally probably source most of my food locally at this point. And I do that a lot. I still haven't gotten completely, but you're absolutely right. And I do think that's where we need to go back to, because industrial food is not healthy. Yeah, it really didn't. It was like, wow. No, industrial food is not good for you. It's not a good thing to eat. And it takes us more away, because really when you're eating food, you're taking in life force. And some sort of packaged thing that has all this crap in it that, maybe was once something natural, I'm not sure, is not actually going to nourish you. And more people are realizing that. I'm amazed even here, because even though, there were a lot of things we didn't do during COVID and all that, it was I've always thought when I first moved here, I was like, everybody's so backwards here. But even here, people are saying, oh, well, I don't want to eat that crap anymore. And so we have we have organic farmers, we have people who are raising organic meat and all of this stuff, and they're selling it, and it's really starting to take hold. So I do think, and it's odd because I've always thought that this place was more behind, but now I'm kind of seeing that in some ways it's much more ahead, because I do think we need to get back to that, to living with the earth and being and producing our own food. And I was talking to this person about that one time, and he was like, "Well, I don't like to grow food. I don't want to do that. I don't want to grow all my own food." And I was like, "Well, you don't have to grow all your own food. Maybe you want to grow some tomatoes. And like you said, you do corn, I'll do potatoes, whatever."
The easy one.
Well, and so, so there are people who are growing meat. There are people who are making cheese. There are people who are making sourdough bread. I'm going to throw the sourdough in there. And there's all kinds of stuff happening, and it's really starting to blossom. And I really do think, and you can grow a lot of things inside your house. If you are in a place where you need to do that, and even bringing that into your house is reconnecting with the earth. Because when you really start growing things, the next thing that happens is you start really connecting with the seasons, and you start really connecting with the way that the earth ebbs and flows, and the weather, and it really is a much more peaceful and natural way to live. And I think it's beautiful. I really do think in the future. One of the things I laugh about is people say, "Oh, talking about the weather is small talk." Around here, the weather is really important.
Yeah, you're in Tornado Valley, aren't you? Or close to it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not small talk. It's major. And I have to laugh because I was talking to this woman from New York City one time, and she said, "It must be really nice to live in a place where nature is such a part of life." And I was like, where is nature not a part of life? I mean, maybe, even in New York City, don't you have some nature there? There's some nature there. I mean, nature is life as far as I'm concerned, but
it's true. But I can feel, because there is a difference, because I was living in a city, and like the butthole city, I always call it. Toronto was nice. It actually had less. Toronto was very nice, but it had less actual nature than Hamilton did, because Hamilton's on a mountain. So it's filled with waterfalls and trails, and they were exquisite. Like I missed them to a point, but we've tried bringing the kids there. One, the cliffs scare me with kids. Now I have cliffophobia, but two, the city energy, you can still feel it. So yeah. And I could see why I loved it when I was in the city, because it was better than this, like being in the thick of the city, but it's still in the city. It's funny, because it's almost like, they have Madison, what's it called? Not Madison Square Gardens, the big forest they have in the middle of New York, which is genius to do, by the way.
Central Park.
Central Park, thank you. Which is a lot to do with why their energy, I think, is what it is. They're also on a major, if not the most major, ley line. But then to top it off, they were smart enough to put that enormous forest and haven't really touched it or taken from it. And because that cleans out their energy, and they can have all those people. So forests do help a city, but there's still a forest in a city. And regardless, you're still going to feel the city energy. Even if it's better, it's still city energy, versus, because we used to drive out this way. There was days where, and I just like, let's get out of here. And I was nagging to leave for eons, but he didn't want to commute, and he commutes, but because he still works in there. But we moved very far away. And it's just, and surrounding us is all country too. So we are like a little, like I'm in the little town. It's pretty cute and small and little, but then there's nothing major though. Like we're like, I guess, be in the cute little area, but then all around us for like an hour's width, except that way is the lake, but it's just farms and stuff, or forest. And you get to just really actually feel clean in a way city people probably don't get to experience unless they do occasionally leave the city. But there's something different, like completely unplugging and moving away. It's just a must. And I saw that a large part of the split too. It's just people that could not stay in a city anymore. Like they just could not live in a city, because I'm not the only one that has such a story of like, I have to get out now. And I never planned on spending honestly, I was in the city longer than I thought. It was like a young person thing. But next thing you know, we turned 30 in the city. Yeah. So it's like, nope, we got to get out.
Yeah, no, I moved here precisely because of that. I just got to the point where I wasn't even living in a really big city. I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico when I finally came here. And Santa Fe is really a lovely, lovely place. And there's lots of nature, and it's on the mountain, and it's a beautiful city, but it was still too much. I was just like, I've got to get out of here because I just can't take this anymore. Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I've heard that, Nick. I've got to get out of here. And I really felt it so strongly. And when I came back to the woods, it was just this huge relief. And, I'm surrounded by trees. I have trees on all sides of me. And I really need that buffer. And I find now when I go to the city, it's just like, wow, the energy here is just, it's too much. I mean, I can take it for a few hours and I'm like, oh, I've got to go back to the woods. I can't take this. And I think that you're right. It is part of the split, because people who are really sensitive to that have, and for me, it was just like, I just have to. And people would say, well, why do you want to move there? Because what's there? Well, precisely, there's nothing here but trees. I'm good. And, I go back, and also, I don't have a lot of traffic to contend with. I don't have, I go back, I grew up in Colorado. I go back to Colorado. I'm just like, this is just a huge city. This is just one city. When I was growing up, there was a lot more, I mean, there's still a lot of nature there, but it was just a lot more. And I find that I'm at the point now where it's really hard for me to tolerate being in the city. And also, just the pavement is like suppressing the earth's energy in so many places, and that need to hurry and it's just, it really, once you really start getting out of that, it becomes even more oppressive, because once you're not inured to it, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is really oppressive. And it's really making me feel disconnected and making me feel overwhelmed. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's something to be said about cities. They have an egregore. So like, that's what I said, when you're in the country, you can be you can be yourself. I remember growing up like that, because even this isn't perfect. And where I'm from, actually, like, oh, it's so funny. We grew up poor, right? But we grew up in a very rich area, and it's done nothing but get more rich, because it's my dad's grown-up house. That's why we were in that area, right? And they were like one of the only people around forever. Even when I was a kid, we were going a while down the road before it was someone else. And they're probably like a well-to-do farmer. It was still very farm. And now, though, people from the city, I don't know where they're from, have huge mansions right beside, because we had a whole forest, and the guy died, and his kids sold it, because we used to that was like our forest. The guy even told my dad's like, everyone loves my dad. It's like, oh yeah, I use it. My dad had deer hunting stands in there. The guy was like, he was this old man. He just owned the land. He didn't do anything with it. And but then once he died, now my dad's deer stands are gone. Although the farmer he has them in the farm now, because we were farm, forest. So it was either farm or forest around us. And now it's mansions, like these ridiculous, all look the same kind of mansions. Like there's one in front, there's one beside, and it already feels different. Just driving out there, or you guys don't live here, but they took this major highway and extended it all the way out. So now you can take the highway out to my area, where before there was this older highway and you'd get off and you're still driving like 30, 40 minutes before you reach my parents' house. But no, now it's just up and coming, and that energy, it permeates and it takes away. Here, at least the town is cute and sweet. So there is a little energy, but they're cute and sweet. Even the hobos are like not the same caliber of hobos as like a city. And then there's a difference in cities, because they have egregores. Like, so Hamilton feels like awful and ugh, and just where Toronto, because I actually just went there twice in August for a couple of events. Toronto still feels amazing. And I lived in Toronto when I was very young, twice, 2 different occasions, lived there, left, lived there again. And oh, it's amazing. I actually love Toronto. And there's just something where a city can come alive on its own. It's a waterfront city, so I think that ends up having a lot to do with it. Although actually now so is Hamilton, so no. But because we're right on Lake Ontario, like all of us. And anyways, it has a really good feel though, Toronto and New York, because we're very close to New York here. That's why I was saying we should all meet up in New York. Talk about a place to meet. And then we're like meeting in the middle. But New York feels amazing. Like it's alive, and it's a lot. So it can do a lot to your energy, but it's like a drug a lot though. It's like a good drug. Like you feel alive and amazing versus because of egregores though. So even if it's a good city, if you want to live there, you're almost like, unless you're a master, handing yourself over to that egregore to a large degree, because you're living in its domain. It's like anywhere, right? If you work for Microsoft, you're going to be affected by the Microsoft egregore, because that's an enormous company, versus if you work for like a little coffee shop, it's going to have a minor egregore. Everything has an egregore that starts to take on a pattern and a rhythm that will just be automatically decided based on the collective consciousness of the group.
Oh, we've lost her. Let's see
Oh,
if
that
she
was a
can
little
get.
one.
If she, let's.
Yeah.
There
But
you
yeah,
are.
being in the country where you are, I would imagine would be like how I grew up, where you actually get that. And I feel camping. That's why I love camping. That's the way we want our trailer. But you actually just finally feel solitarily like one with the stars, one with the cosmos, because you can just feel the totality of your own presence and just be in your own self, and not, especially if you're any kind of empath or starseed, you can really feel things touching your existence. Oh yeah, I've been to Chicago too. Chicago was nice, but not as nice. It didn't have that same aliveness as New York. It was, and I've never been to Portland, Oregon, but I've heard a lot about it, and that makes sense why I would have gone nuts if it was very green and empty-ish, and then to become such a like a metropolitan like it is now, that would be very fast. And whenever anything's done very fast, it means more chaos.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, well, and the woods have their own sort of egregore, but it's much more
Peaceful.
You're right. And that's why I had to come here, because I really, and I was expanding then too. My aura was getting bigger and my field was getting bigger. So even when I was like, I had a little house in Santa Fe that was on 2 acres, and I was still feeling my neighbors, and I'd be like, I can't, because at that time in my life, I hadn't really learned to balance the empath thing. So I was always taking on all of these emotions that weren't mine and all of this stuff. And I really, at that time, and living in the woods really helped me to learn to differentiate, because for a long time I had trouble differentiating, is that my rage or is that my neighbor over there? Is that his rage? I don't know. I'm just feeling really angry. And so I really learned now. And so now I'm much better able to identify and say, okay, that's not me. I'm not going to take that on right now. But it does, and it just allows you to, and to really realize that you are one with nature, because it's a completely different feel. And I have encountered the egregore in the woods. I mean, there are a lot of really interesting spirits that live in these woods.
I
and
would
it's
call
a
them
very,
real spirits there, like an actual, probably
they,
living spirit animal, or
they
like how
are.
like the Asians show them, and the spirit of the river and things. I would say that's a lot more ancient and sentient than what would exist over a city. That may or may not, because an egregore can eventually split off and be its own entity and become a god, but there's like a difference where like the forest, it's so pure, alive and real, and can talk to you. Like I'm not, I've said on my show many times, I came with a couple big trees that are very old, but I've since let a forest pretty much grow up all around my fence. Although the neighbors over there cut it down, although they're a smaller part of the fence because our garage goes over there. They cut it all down. I was like, boo, my fence, my tree fence. But it creates that like wall, and you talk to them, like they answer. Like, it's amazing. Once you learn to talk to spirit and self and symbology, you can really actually talk to the forest.
You really can. And the forest will tell you things and guide you. And the forest here it's very primal. It's not, as you said, it's not the same kind of forest you would find in a city, because it's not been a city for many, many years. There is actually a ruined city underneath this forest that and actually the forest is what originally told me about it. And I started seeing evidence of it, and I was like, this is really interesting. So it's amazing the things you can learn just from sitting with the trees and listening to the trees. And at first I was always like, oh, well, I can't really hear them. And then I realized I could. I just wasn't. And I think most people have that ability. They just don't realize they have that ability, and they need to learn to tune back into it. But it is amazing. And I mean, I really feel well protected here too, because the forest really does protect. And some people come here and they're really freaked out. They're like, it's kind of scary here, and I just think it's funny. And usually those people are people I'm like, okay, I don't want to hang out with this person because the forest doesn't like this person.
Yes.
It's true. So even the energy here is so strong that even people who don't feel energy can feel that energy when they come in here. So it really is a different kind of thing. And I think that's more what it's like to live with the earth, you know, in the way that perhaps ancient civilizations lived with the earth, the way that it's in my DNA and in my deepest memories of living with the earth. And I really do feel like one of the things we really need to come back to is that knowing of the earth, and that knowing of the earth as a living thing, and also that recognition that everything has its own consciousness. And there are also lots of really interesting spirits running around in there. You know, I always laugh because people will say fairies aren't real. And I'm like, you know, live in my house for a while and then tell me fairies aren't real, because they're around here. You can see them. And, you know, you might just say, well, you know, I had a friend of mine out here one time and we saw, I don't know what we saw. It was some sort of a spirit light thing, and it came up and then it flew. It's like a light. And that's right. Reject modernity, embrace the Lorax. I agree, Nick. And he was like, and I said, well, did you see that? And he said, you mean where it looked like it flew? And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, that couldn't have been. There's an explanation for that. And I was like, yeah, there is an explanation for that, but it's not, you're not going to accept it. And he just kept telling me, well, it wasn't what we saw something, but it really wasn't what we thought we saw. And I was like, okay.
Self-gaslighting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue about it. But, you know, you tell people, I mean, I tell most people don't really, you know, they think all these things are inanimate objects and they're not. And they think all those lights are just, it's some kind of optical illusion. But no, there's a consciousness there. And I really think that as we start to remember more who we are, we're going to really start seeing more of that and really being able to experience it in a whole new way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I liked what you put there. That's a perfect way to sum it up and bring the show to a close, because the reconnection with Earth and how like we need that connects us to our primordial self, and the way you can so deeply and truly feel it. It's next level. It is that next level. Like people try all these different, like I'm not poo-pooing anything like Kundalini or anything like that, because they're all fantastic breath work. I do that. Like there's so many different things we can do to create this heart-centered mind-brain connection, right? Or like, sorry, heart-mind connection, to create coherence, to create hemisync, to do all these things that balance us. But one of the tried and true methods where you don't even have to do anything except sit there and just listen is the earth. And even if you're not listening, it's doing something anyways. But if you listen, like just quiet the self and sit in nature, just looking at what I used to do. And this was even in the city, because I worked in this building and the rooftop had trees. So I'd go up to the roof for lunches and stuff. This was when I worked at Apple, it doesn't matter. But I would look at the trees and connect to their soul. And like, just like you can do from person to person, you can look in each other's eyes and connect souls, right? And you could feel that come alive in the heart spark. But likewise with a tree, or with the totality of the forest, with an animal, but like with a tree, especially with a tree, like just, if you don't know what to do, focus on the core of a tree. Imagine its core energy, because it would have its own like Kundalini rising itself. It has a core energy route. Trees grow from the inside and push out. It's why you can tell the age from the outside, because they're growing from the in and pushing out. So find that stream inside, and I'm telling you, you will feel yourself plug in. Even if you're not touching the earth, if you're just looking, you're going to feel it. Let alone if you're touching the earth, it'll feel like you plugged right into Gaia herself.
It really will. And that is such good advice, Diana. And it's so true. Even if you can't go in full on nature, if you can be with a tree, that tree will bring you in, and trees will talk to you. Trees love us, and they want to reconnect with us. I actually did meet one hostile tree once, but it had black magic done to it. And I've only met one. I've met a lot of trees.
I've heard about some in Japan that are, yeah.
Yeah. But so most trees are safe and friendly and love us. And that's such good advice. And really seriously, any kind of therapy, there is nothing that matches just going out in nature. And even if all you have is a potted plant in your house, that you can still connect to nature through that plant. And you will start to really just listen, just sit and listen. You know, that was what really brought me to the fullness of the now moment, because you can sit in your house and say, oh, I want to live in the moment and all this stuff. And it's kind of hard to connect to that. Was it a locust? The evil tree? No, it was a maple.
Oh, I got lots of those. That's funny.
Well, most of them aren't. I mean, this tree had some serious black magic done to it.
What a
and
howdy do tree to be evil too. That's very funny.
It was, and it's in this cemetery. It's actually in this area. It's in this cemetery.
Oh, I
It's
wonder
in
if
a
an
Native
evil
American
spirit
cemetery.
of one of the people got into it or something. And then plus, like you said, black magic, people do that in cemeteries. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you know it's a Native American cemetery, and I'm sure that there's all this anger that came from because they were relocated here. So I'm sure, but I'm used to connecting with trees, and I went up to that one. I was like, oh, and I was like, ah, and I was like, oh my gosh, that tree hates me.
Gonna win it over
good
good presents.
Yeah. So I don't think it matters that it was maple. I mean, I think it just would have been whatever tree was.
No,
there.
yeah, it's just funny. It's just funny because I think the ones I heard about in Japan are like some fancy name and they look really cool. So it's just funny.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but if there's one thing I could recommend to everyone, just go outside. If you can put your bare feet on the ground, that makes it even better, but you don't have to. Just go outside and just sit with it, because if you really want to connect to the now and the moment, that's the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I will, Nick. That's funny. Maybe they're the Japanese ones I'm thinking of. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Kirsten. Thank you, Nick. And thank you, Sam. And I hope you feel better, Sam. Sam was supposed to be here with us today, but she is not feeling well. So absolute love and prayers to her on the healing journey. And again, thank you, Kirsten. I appreciate this so much, and your wisdom and just the light we can bring to all these topics, because that's what we're doing now. That's the age. It's unpacking, because we know there was a ton of lies. But what's the truth, right? Maybe I could change it. What's the truth? But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kirsten. And you can find her at Metaphysical Fat Podcast on YouTube and X, and then or Kirsten Mustaine Wonder Awake at X. And then any final thoughts, Kirsten?
No, I just want to say, go out in nature. We're coming into a whole new paradigm, and it's beautiful. And the more we can thank you, Nick. Thanks for being here. The more that you can put your creative energy and what you really want to create in it, the more beautiful it's going to be. And when all of us are putting that energy into it and saying, this is what we want to create, that's all we have to do. We don't have to fight anyone or cause any sort of harm. We can bring good, wonderful things.
Let's just discuss it.
Yeah, that's right. Just discuss it. Just bring it out. Let's talk.
We can disagree. We don't need to sword each other anymore if that's not what I think. Chink, we could just talk.
Exactly. Exactly. There's room here. There's room for everyone.
Exactly. Well, beautifully put, Kirsten. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, Nick and Sam, and everybody in the audience. And we will see you all again next time. Goodbye for now.
Round and round the world we spin. Who knows where we're going? Up into ascension we sail. Pop goes the matrix. Here we stand and here we rise. God resides inside you. You are God, and everything is pop goes the matrix. Children, you are deeply loved. Children, you are special. Never feel alone inside. God lives inside you.